Welcome back, YouTube. Today I'm going to be discussing the tier shifts in Generation 3 OU. These tier shifts are Raikou and Registeel. Raikou and Registeel, especially the last couple of years, have been used on many overused teams. And finally, they have been boosted to OU. They used to be considered UUBL, which means that they were too good for UU, but considered not good enough to be considered OU Mons, but now they're moved to the OU tier. I'm going to be discussing common sets for both Raikou and Registeel and what they've been doing in OU. So I'm going to go right into these sets. So I named this team as a joke. I kind of named it Welcome to OU because now they're officially OU Mons. The first one I'm going to be going over is Lead Slot Raikou. Lead Slot Raikou aims to disrupt other lead slots. So in Lead Slot Raikou, it runs Substitute, Toxic, Thunderbolt, and HP Ice. HP Ice is used over Hidden Power Grass because a lot of times you'll have Pokemon that lead Salamence with either a mixed set or a Dragon Dance set, and Hidden Power Ice can take Salamence out in one hit. And you run a Modest Nature instead of a Timid Nature. That way you hit harder. And at 329 speed, you can still outspeed base 100s, such as Salamence and Zapdos. You can disrupt Zapdos by going for Substitute and then utilizing Toxic, as it's harder for Zapdos to break through a Thunderbolt. And a lot of times Zapdos in the lead slot versus a lead Raikou might try to go for a Thunder Wave, so if you go for a Substitute, you can nullify that Thunder Wave and get Toxic off. But yeah, lead Raikou is mainly just to start off the game with either trying to pick up a kill with Hidden Power Ice, or maybe a hard-hitting Thunderbolt or Toxic something and pivot out, and then it can still be utilized late game. A lot of times you'll see this kind of set on a special offense type team where you're trying to lead with very quick pressure, and especially if you lead off into a Skarmory, then they're playing on the back foot, they might pivot out and you may be able to get a Toxic off on something. The second one we're going to be going over, this I think is considered the most used Raikou set, and it's the late game cleaner set. If you're able to keep Raikou for the late game and you take out some of its checks, such as Dugtrio earlier in the game, then you can set up with Calm Mind behind a Substitute. If you start setting up Calm Minds into something that's a special attacker, such as Jirachi or another Pokemon, then they won't break your Substitute. Leftovers means you can get Chip Healing behind the sub, and then just Calm Mind, Substitute, Thunderbolt, and Hidden Power Ice, or sometimes this Hidden Power Ice can be Hidden Power Grass. Hidden Power Ice is good because it can hit Pokemon such as Salamence and Flygon for 4 times super effective damage, and check grass types that would resist Thunderbolt, such as Celebi. But the downside is that you have nothing to hit Swampert, which is a key mon in the tier, so sometimes people run Hidden Power Grass on the set instead of Ice. It's very case dependent because some teams may have better grass coverage and ice coverage and so on and so forth. But these 3 moves are definitely used, and this one is kind of up to choice. Then lastly, we have 3 attacks Raikou. 3 attacks Raikou runs a Lumberry because unlike the Substitute variants, you can't hide behind a sub to avoid Toxic and Thunder Wave. So you have a Lumberry to avoid those status conditions. And it can also be utilized as a status absorber for the team, especially because you're extremely fast. You can come and absorb a status from something and then hit back with a move. And then for your 3 attacks, you run Calm Mind, Thunderbolt, Crunch, and Hidden Power Grass. Crunch is utilized on this Raikou set because it's an 80 damage special move that can hit Celebi really hard. And Celebi is a good counter to Raikou. And unlike Hidden Power Ice, which is 70 damage, Crunch does a little more damage because it does 80, and it also has that added chance of 20% chance, so 1 in 5 chance, to drop the Pokemon Special Defense, which can ease up some 2-hit KOs. And, I forgot to mention, Crunch is also good because it can hit Gengar super hard, and Raikou outspeeds Gengar. Hidden Power Grass is used on this set, and unlike this set where you can run Ice or Grass, this set you just run Grass, because one of the main reasons you're going to run Hidden Power Ice is to hit a Pokemon such as Celebi, and because you have Crunch, you'd rather have Hidden Power Grass to hit Pokemon like Swampert. And obviously, now that you don't have Hidden Power Ice, you're a little weaker into the Salamence or Flygon matchup, but that's a trade you're willing to make because of the fact you have Crunch now at Celebi. Now, starting off with the Registeel sets, we have the most popular set, the Mixed Wall set. Mixed Wall set aims to run Thunder Wave, Seismic Toss, Counter, and Explosion. Thunder Wave is good as a status condition. Thunder Wave is good because it just deals a damage equal to the user's level, and all Pokemon are level 100 in this game, so it just deals a flat amount of damage onto Pokemon, so you don't have to worry about your attack or special attack set. Counter is really good because of that enormous 150 base defense stat. You're able to tank blows such as Earthquakes from Salamence or Earthquakes from Dugtrio or Swampert and hit back really hard with a counter. Explosion is good. Even though you don't have anything invested into your attack, Explosion's good because in old generations, if your Pokemon faints, then you get a free switch in. And even though you don't have a high attack stat, Explosion does base 500 damage because it has the opponent's defense stat. So Explosion, even with no attack invested, can still do a lot of damage or even finish off a Mon. Another Pokemon that shows off the power of Explosion very well is Gengar, who only has base 50 attack, who still utilizes that move just because it's so good. Also, forgot to mention, on this set, sometimes instead of Counter, they'll run Toxic, especially in a lead slot where you have the option to Thunder Wave or Toxic, and some Pokemon that can't get hit by Thunder Wave can get hit by Toxic and vice versa. The Curse set, this is a Curse offensive set that I've used before personally, and is less popular than the first set, but it's still used. So Curse to set up your attack and defense, and this is a very offensive set as it's max attack, max HP, and then just a little bit in special defense, but this set's mainly just boost your defense to crazy margins and just be a tank, a physical tank, decently specially bulky, and hit extremely hard. So Hidden Power Rock is used because it can one-hit KO Moltres and Charizard. And a lot of times on defensive sets, you're not going to have a really good move besides like Thunder Wave to hit those Pokemon. So a Moltres or Charizard may switch in thinking they have the upper hand and get one shot by Hidden Power Rock. Focus Punch is really good for Pokemon that are going to try to phase you out like Roar users, such as Skarmory, where even though its Focus Punch isn't going to take them out, you're going to get good chunk damage on that Pokemon before they phase you out. It's also good on something that may try to set up on you, like if you're going for Curse and a Tyranitar tries to go for Dragon Dance, for example, then you can take him out with a Focus Punch. Also, if a Snorlax is trying to set up on you, curses while you're cursing, hit him with a Focus Punch. Or something like a Blissey that may switch in to absorb what they think is an incoming status of Thunder Wave or Toxic and gets taken out with a Focus Punch. Earthquake is really good because it just hits a lot of other Steel types and other Pokemon that may threaten Registeel, such as even other like ground types that may come in, like an incoming Dugtrio can get hit pretty hard by an Earthquake. This move, you may see with these movesets, he doesn't run any Steel type moves because Steel type is a very bad type offensively. Metagross has Meteor Mash, which is a 100 damage Steel type move that has a chance to boost your attack. But besides that rare instance of a Steel type move being good offensively, you'd much rather have something like Hidden Power Rock that can check a lot of Registeel's Pokemon that threaten Registeel than something like Hidden Power Steel, because even with Stab, a 70 damage move is not going to do a lot more damage. Lastly, though, we do have a set that does utilize Hidden Power Steel. This set is more of a stall set and is used as like a late game win condition on a lot of stall teams. In stall teams, you want to break your opponent down slowly. So at the end of the game, when you have a max HP, max special defense Pokemon that's setting up with Curse to boost its defense even further, and Amnesia to boost its special defense by 2, sometimes it's really hard to break through unless you get a crit. Also with Clear Body, Pokemon can't lower this Pokemon's stat changes and stuff, which also makes this set really hard to break through without crits. And this is pretty basic, just cursing and setting up Amnesia. Amnesia boosts your special defense by 2. Curse boosts your attack by 1 and defense by 1, lowering your speed. Rest can heal back after you've been boosting some. And then for the last move, you run either Hidden Power Steel because it's your only stab attack. So after stab, you're doing a little over 100 some damage with Hidden Power Steel because of that same type attack bonus. Or sometimes instead of Hidden Power Steel, Hidden Power Steel has 24 PP, so sometimes you'll see Rollout, which Rollout has higher PP, it has 32, so you can use it more times. And Rollout The power doubles with each hit and repeats for 5 turns. So basically, rollout only starts at 30 power, but if you're in for a really long time cursing using Amnesia, that rollout can do a ton of damage. The only problem is there's that small chance that if you do miss, it gets reset. But you do have higher PP than Hidden Power Steel. Another move it sometimes runs is just Body Slam. Body Slam has the same amount of PP as Hidden Power Steel, and you may not have that same type attack bonus, but with Body Slam you have that added benefit of being able to paralyze Pokemon, which even though you're incredibly slow with Curse, those paralyzed turns where they may not be able to attack you is crucial for being able to rest back up and win the game, especially if they get you down pretty low or get some lucky crits. If they're paired and can't move, then you can set back up and rest. So yeah, those are the 3 most prominent Raikou sets and 3 most prominent Registeel sets that I've personally seen and that are used in the metagame. And now for the next part, I'm just going to go through some teams using Raikou and Registeel. So for the first one I'm going to show off, this is Raikou Slop. This was made by a prominent player with a very funny name. His name is Shit Rock Enjoyer. But don't let the silly name fool you. He's a great player and probably one of the best in the advanced metagame at the moment. This team utilizes a very offensive team with Dragon Dance Tyranitar. This is the mixed defensive variant of Registeel. Offensive Swampert with Selakberry. A fairly offensive Calm Mind Celebi with just a little bit of bulk, so that's why I said fairly offensive here. Raikou, and this is the Raikou set of Calm Mind 3 attacks. The one interesting thing that you'll see on this Raikou 3 attacks is it's not running the Lumberry. Usually on 3 attack set you'll see Lum, but he's running Leftovers, which that's not the standard, but a lot of this team isn't exactly the standard as EVs are a little different on these Pokemon. And then lastly, a Dragon Dance Salamence. And here's another one where his EVs are a little different. This is a standard amount of speed on a setup Salamence of 271, but he definitely has more SPDEF investment than is usually required on a Salamence here. But this kind of team is referred to as Slop, and it's a very offensive team with Dragon Dance Tyranitar in the lead slot, an offensive Swampert with max speed, max special attack, and a Selakberry set you can substitute down, get a speed boost, use Endeavor, use Toxic, use Hydro Pump, an offensive Celebi, offensive Raikou with Calm Mind. So you have 2 Calm Mind users and 2 Dragon Dance users. And then you have Registeel, which is really good to get some status off and explode to help facilitate these sweepers to win. So this shows Registeel's benefit on this kind of team where this team is very offensive, but then you have this one defensive Pokemon that's able to tank hits on the physical side and special side while putting up some status conditions and blowing up. And then obviously you have the Raikou set up here with Calm Mind, which can be utilized late game. The one thing you'll see though is with this, the difference between something like Registeel and Blissey on this team is with Blissey, you could have Thunder Wave and Toxic and Seismic Toss and maybe Heal Move or something, but you don't have Explosion to be able to not only deal some good damage, but get a free pivot into a Mon. Because with Blissey switching out, you don't want to always get a pivot into an offensive Mon, because without those defensive capabilities, you won't be able to tank hits as well to set up. So getting a free turn to switch is very crucial. Then next, I'm going to show off this team by Zets. This team's called Every Set is Weird because if you notice, these sets aren't very typical. Like the sets, the EVs are pretty weird. This is like a counter Snorlax, which isn't used much. This is a defensive, well, more of a defensive version of Dragon Dance Salamence with Refresh to get rid of status conditions, Brick Break, HP Flying, Mixed Metagross, and Choice Band Claydol. I get this team's really weird, but I'm just going to focus on the Raikou here. The Raikou is using that Lumberry set that I was talking about, the 3 attacks, with Calm Mind, Thunderbolt, Crunch, and HP Grass. This Raikou is very crucial on this team for taking out Gengar, as this Snorlax doesn't have Rest. So if Gengar hits it with a Will-O-Wisp to lower its attack, Shadow Ball is not going to take it out very well, so you're kind of relying on Psychic from Metagross or Crunch from Raikou to break through so that Claydol can use Rapid Spin, because this is more of an offensive Claydol, so it won't be able to come in and rapid spin as much as a defensive Claydol would be able to do. And then lastly, the last team I have. Sorry, I have more teams with Raikou on here than teams with Registeel. That's just because some of the teams I had in the builder, I had more with Raikou than with Registeel. But regardless, I'll just show this off. This is just a standard substitute Calm Mind, Thunderbolt, Hidden Power Grass in the last slot. This team was made by Tetrafolium, I think. It's a pretty offensive team. Choice Band Salamence. Starmie is your offensive rapid spinner. Leech Seed, 3 attack Celebi. Agility, Metagross, Porygon 2, and then Raikou. This team's point is to bait baiting a Dugtrio in, if there is a Dugtrio on the team, and then trapping them with Porygon 2. So for example, say you rapid spin with Starmie, your Starmie's kind of injured, the Dugtrio comes in, finishes you off with an Earthquake. Then you can pivot in Porygon 2, use Trace, which will trap Arena Trap. And with your defense investment, you can just stay in, spam Recover on Dugtrio until they struggle, or use a couple recovers and Ice Beam twice and take them out. And then with Dugtrio out of the game, that can facilitate you to win the game with either, on the offensive physical end, Agility, Metagross can utilize the win if their team's physically frail, and if their team's more specially frail, you can utilize a win with Raikou. One of this team's main flaws, though, is it's more special attacking than physical attacking, which can sometimes be harmed by Blissey, but that's besides the point. That's some teams that show off Registeel and Raikou. So I hope you enjoyed this video of me going over some of the popular Raikou sets and the popular Registeel sets that have been being used, and talking about Registeel and Raikou's rise to OU. If you like this kind of informational content, feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments what you think about Registeel and Raikou rising to OU and them rising together. I think that part of the reason that they rose at the same time was because of Shitrock and Joyer's popular team with Slop that utilizes both Registeel and Raikou. I showed off one of those teams, but if you watch a lot of tournaments or watch a lot of ADV gameplay, Raikou and Registeel can complement each other a lot, because the more defensive variants with Registeel, Thunder Waving and Toxic in Pokemon, spreading status can help out substitute Raikou, especially because you can come in while a Pokemon's paralyzed, utilize their paralysis to be able to substitute multiple times and sweep. So they both benefit each other. And I personally think that Registeel was more deserving of its rise to OU, because I think Registeel is a little better in the metagame right now. But I gotta say, I've utilized teams with Raikou in the past in Gen 3 where I've gotten top 500, sometimes even top 100 placements. So it's definitely good in the right circumstances. So like I said, hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think. If Registeel was deserving for its rise to OU, if Raikou was deserving of its rise to OU, or let me know if you disagree, if you think these Pokemon should have been stayed in UUBL and that they're just overhyped and might not be fit for the Gen 3 OU metagame.